I was talking the other day about the term non-duality and trying to come up with something better. I've had quite a few discussions like that lately, to try and not use the term. But really, it's not bad. It really doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what we call this. It's not this, but you know, that's not a bad word either. But the reason non-duality is not a bad word is because all it's suggesting is, rather than what is typically felt to be reality, which is always two, is always me and everything else, there simply isn't two or many. And the reason it's not one, you know, because you may then say, which I often said, well, it's oneness then. And I heard lots of speakers talk about oneness. But the oneness isn't a, oneness suggests that there is a oneness to find. You know, oneness is very singular, as though there is a singular reality that could be found. And this isn't about a finding. This is saying that everything is as it is already. It's not somewhere else. It's not a finding of oneness. And if the oneness means anything, it means a oneness that you can't know, that you can't see, that you can't have. And so oneness is kind of misleading. It's not. Oneness is okay too. But it is suggesting a solidity, a thingness, a whole thing, you know, the super thing. And that's not what's being suggested, that you could find oneness. There simply isn't two. And what oneness there is completely empty. And full of everything. So you could equally say that this is real and unreal. All the things are really being what they are, but that being what they are is completely empty. That's Mum making a cup of tea. What that is. What we're really talking about is the need to know, the need to know what's happening, to know what's going on, for no apparent reason, can simply stop appearing. That is an appearance. What you've called yourself is an appearance. And you may have noticed already that it comes and goes anyway. But of course, there's no one to notice the absence. So the absence is like, wow, what happened there? That was lovely. And then all self can do on the seeming return of the appearance of feeling separate is go looking in the place where it happened, in the activity that was being done when it seemed to happen. But of course, it's not happening. The absence of me is not happening. It's how it always is. But the seeming appearance of me seems to mask it. It can't be masked. This can't be hidden. What we're speaking of is not, it is in plain view. It's never anywhere else. There isn't anywhere else. But the whole illusion of self, everyone knows it comes and goes. But self won't have it. Self calls it bliss or joy or mindfulness or whatever. It's got a word for when there's a sense of no need, which is what we're speaking of. Because this doesn't have a need. This isn't looking for something else. It's always me who's looking for something other than what is. Of course, there never is anything other than what is. And in that is what's normally referred to as suffering. That sense of longing, that feeling not good enough, feeling incomplete, feeling there's something missing. There is never anything missing. And the wonder is there was never anyone who could be incomplete or complete. This isn't about a completion. This is complete already. Absolutely whole. Wholly as it is. Being as it is. And wholly empty. Somebody said the other day to me that it's nothing being everything. And you could say that, but that's a bit misleading. It sounds like nothing is the source, but nothing is nothing. It isn't a source. It isn't that things appear from nothing, in nothing. It's that the things are equally real and unreal. So they are being what they are. So everything is as it is and empty. This isn't coming from anywhere. Life is complete. And although that may sound special, and of course it is, if it's the only, there is only what's happening, there is only this, of course it is special, but it's an incredibly ordinary specialness. It's really the end of seeing the mundane as separate from the spiritual or special or blissful or extraordinary. And what I'm speaking of is not intellectual at all. The most profound, the most disappointing aspect of this is that everything that I'd learned, everything that I'd understood, all the insights, all those wondrous aha moments of, yeah, now, that's it. Now I get it. Just seemed to be just as empty as a cough or a sneeze or a fart. You know, a fart is no more significant than your greatest insight that you hold so dear. And then, and if that is seen, there could be tears, but there'd be tears and laughter simultaneously, because it's all for naught. It's all for nothing. All of it. And that is the freedom. That's what we're speaking of. This precious life that you've called yours, that has significance, meaning, purpose, that it's going somewhere, that it will mean something. No. And then there's simply life, not requiring any knowing to be completely known. And life never gives a shit what you say about it. Your interest in philosophy is screwed. Probably your interest in spirituality as well. You may well have more simple interests. The simple pleasures and joys of life, of being human. Which of course are always the best ones. And you don't have to look for those. They don't have to be searched for. They're just appearing when you least expect it. I'm guessing that you've all had that experience. And incredibly, all of life is okay then, even the worst of life, the things that self runs away from, that I ran from. Especially sadness, loss. This isn't the end of loss. This isn't the end of sadness. There's nothing magical about what we're speaking of. It's not therapeutic. It's the end of the one who needs therapy. No one to be better or worse. Freedom for the human being to just be as it is. And the lightness of not constantly criticizing the human being for being inadequate, for not matching the self's ridiculous standards and aspirations. Which nearly everyone realizes that is the root cause of not all, but most suffering. Okay, if you would like to ask a question or share something, then just put your hand up. I'll have a look in the chat. Tom says empty farts. Thanks, Tom. Which is, well, some are quite full, Tom. Hi. Non-fartuality as a new name for what we're speaking of. That's from Paddle Gugborg. Genius. Gregory says great introduction, which is, I can't help but there's a little bit of a teacher in me who wants to correct that. Dario says, but there seems to be space. Is space part of the illusion of self? Well, you could say, Dario, that there's only space. With the illusion of objects in the space. It is all empty. So really there aren't objects with space in between. That's normal perceived reality. And I'm not talking about a difference in perception, but it might be obvious that what you called the space in between the objects, it's all equally empty. The objects are no more objective than the space. There isn't any space between. Rajiv says, Tim, can you comment on the statement, what is, never was? What is, never was? I could comment on it, I suppose. What is, never was? Well, Ranjiv, I'd say there only is what there is, what is, and what was, wasn't, isn't, because it already was. It was, you know, there isn't a was. The Wizard of Was. It's got very Dr. Seuss again. Whatever the wisdom was, that's the Wizard of Oz. Yeah. So there never was a was. What? Right. I'll try and be serious now. Was and will be are the illusion. You know, I was playing golf earlier, and I will be having a curry later. Just one's memory and one's imagination, which we call plans, but and planning naturally happens. Somebody said, yeah, but you make plans, don't you? I went, yeah. If there's making plans, there is. Doesn't need you to make plans. The thing is, me says, I am required for everything. I am a requirement in life. Without me, all shit would break loose. You know, hell would break loose. Shit would hit the fan. Nothing would get done. I'm the one holding all this. I'm holding it all together. And if self gets a whiff of its own complete insignificance, well, if it gets a whiff of its non-existence, then it gets terrified. But if it gets a whiff of its gets a smell of its insignificance, then usually there's fear, because fear gets me back working on myself again, working on my life again.
Eligio has its hand up.
Who does?
Eligio.
Eligio, yeah. Hi.
Oh, hey Tim, how you
Hey.
doing?
Yeah, good, thanks.
I'm gonna see you on my computer right here. So I have a couple of questions, if that's okay.
Mm,
You
sure.
know, me as a person, me as a male, me as a man, sometimes things like in appearance, golf seems to be a real sport, but it's
Yeah,
not, is it?
yeah, it's both. Yeah, I don't say it's not real.
Golf is not. No, that's not my question.
Oh, that's not. Is that your question? I thought it was a
That's
question.
not my question.
I tell you what,
My question.
when I'm playing golf, golf's very real.
No, that's not my question.
Life and death, Eligio.
Okay, I'll be serious. I was asking if golf is the real sport, but that was a joke.
Oh, I
The
see.
real.
Oh, it's not a real sport. Yeah. Well, it was in the Olympics, so it is a real sport now. Yeah.
I'll have to do some research on that one. But the real question is,
It's a sport. It's a sport for old men who can't play the sport that they want to play anymore.
okay, now you're playing with words there. You've gone too far.
Okay.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. No, the real question is this. When you say empty, like everything is empty,
Mm.
are you meaning like everything is empty of meaning? Or is it that the word that we use to describe it
That's a good
is
question. It's the one you know when most speakers about this say this can't be described,
yeah.
that they're speaking about emptiness.
Are they speaking that the word we use is not really what it is? Is that what they're saying?
Yeah, that's well. When I say this can't be described, I mean you can't describe something that's absolutely empty and absolutely full, or that
Yeah,
that things that are being what they are, but they're equally not being what they are.
yeah. This morning, I thought about the concept of the me, and then I started thinking. And someone said yesterday, I've forgotten which meeting, they're like saying no. I kept saying, well, conceptually, of course, it's easy to figure out.
Yeah,
Conceptually, it's super easy,
yeah,
right? But then it's like, okay, but okay, they're like, okay, conceptually, you've already moved by having that idea. You've already moved.
it's
You
true.
have
Yeah,
to move to have that idea.
yeah.
Yeah.
It
This
seems like
morning,
that. Yeah,
kind of, it seems, yeah, it
yeah.
seems like we move to.
So here,
Go
if I
ahead.
was telling the story of Tim, then there was conceptual understanding years and years ago. But as I said, one of the biggest shocks or disappointments was that it was all seen to be that didn't mean anything. This isn't about an understanding.
Yeah, like not even this morning when I saw it, I saw myself move into the concept of, yeah, it's a me, I'm me. But then I'm like, wait, that's a thought, that's the concept that just
Yeah,
came out, just appeared. Yeah, the concept just appeared by itself of the me, and then I didn't know what to do with it. And I can't do anything with it because I can't make it appear and I can't make it disappear.
no,
Right?
no.
Yeah.
No, because of
Thank
course, if I had a method to make me disappear, then I'd be very wealthy.
thank you, Tim.
If there was a method, yeah.
Well, you can tell me there's a method and I'll believe it. But you're
Yeah.
too honest for that.
Well,
Thank you.
yeah, you're dead right. Because you can go to
Yeah.
there's lots of paths that suggest that there are
Yeah.
ways to what we're speaking of.
Mhm.
But of course, there can't be a way. It's
I did kind of feel like, okay, I did feel like when the movement came, like, oh, there it is. I did feel like I backed off, like I was able to kind of not touch it, kind of like not able, but it just happened.
yeah,
I didn't do it, and it just happened. Like it
yeah,
appeared, and then I went like looked at it, but for like I don't know, and then it kind of went like shaky, and then Who knows? And then I went to work and I don't know what happened there. I do know what happened, but I don't know where I was at work.
Right. Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense. Yeah.
Yeah, it was just, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
That's it.
But I will say, you know,
Mhm.
whatever experiences seem to happen, none of them are of any significance. Well, I'm not speaking about experience at all. I mean, that can be very disappointing, especially because there were certain experiences that I'd had, that you might call awakening experiences, wonderful, inexplicably wonderful experiences, as though they were special. It's now very obvious that there isn't an experience that is better than another experience. Experience is absolutely equal. The most dreadful experience and the most blissful experience. I'm not speaking about living in bliss. I'm not speaking about getting more of the experiences that you want to get. I'm not speaking of that at all. I might be speaking of getting a few less of the ones that you really detest, which is self-loathing, self-hatred, self-disgust, self-criticism, all the negatives of self. But of course, you can't have your cake and eat it. So you don't get to keep self-esteem, self-worth, the things that you might like about yourself. This is the loss of everything that you called yours. And of course, that's never what I want is. It's never what I want. I want to keep what I think is positive about myself and lose what I feel is negative about myself. And then I'll be complete. Then I'll be happy. Then I'll feel whole. It's a terrible lie. Self is the very sense of incompletion. I am the sense of not enough, not quite right, or really wrong, depending on, not all selves are as vindictive towards themselves as others. But generally, self is an asshole. To itself. Most selves I know are much worse to themselves than they are to any other human being. There are a few exceptions to that. That's not a rule.
Scott has his hand up.
Hi, Scott.
Hey, Tim.
Hi.
Hey, everyone. It's so funny to listen to the mind trying to cobble together all the separate pieces when in fact it was never separate.
No.
And it's such a impossible task. And the
Yeah.
mind is the wrong guy for the job. And basically what we're talking about, I know you don't like to use the word mind, but it's losing faith that the mind is ever going to complete its project.
Mm-hmm.
And we've kind of we've withheld our love for the world, for life, because we thought, well, if I don't understand, if I don't control it, if I don't, if I can't put it together. So, you know, all these people are activists trying to put the world back together.
Yeah.
On the outside.
Yeah.
And it was just never separate, and especially from you.
No.
So that's where, so we want to do it, but we want to stay separate, but put the world back together.
Yeah. Well, you know, Well, self goes about this completion project in two ways. It either goes to complete itself, you know, so I work on myself, or I work on the world, both of which I see as faulty and in need of my help. Because of course I know what's right for myself, and I know what's wrong with me, and I know what needs sorting out, and I know what's wrong with the world, and I know what needs sorting out. We're speaking about the end of that.
That's great. Yeah.
The end of that project.
I actually think it's harder if you're, you know, smart, because you're so certain that you're the right man for the
Well, it depends. Well, I mean, even a very self-loathing, negative self towards itself still has an arrogance about it that, you know, I do know what's best. Yeah, I know what's best for me, and I know what's best for the world. And of course, the worst of it is I know what's best for other human beings.
Yeah.
And of course, those selves are the ones who get into power where they can actually impart that, generally. You know, can exert that power.
Right, for their own good.
Because they feel so self-righteous in their belief that they know what's for the best. There's nothing more, there's nothing worse than this whole idea for the greater good. I mean, I'm getting a bit political here, but this whole notion of for the greater good, the worst atrocities come from that.
Yeah. But I think there's, I don't know if I want to call them stages or levels or whatever, but I think there is a connection between wanting to fix yourself and wanting to fix the world. I mean, I'm sure you can.
Oh yeah,
have,
well, as I say,
about the other. Yeah.
Yeah, they're yeah,
when one goes, they both go.
They're both the nature.
Yeah.
The nature of me.
You coming in and saying the world is perfect as it is, in a way it's saying you're perfect as you are. And they
It's the
both
same,
cancel
yeah.
each other out, and all of a sudden we're at a place that's so beautiful and pure, it just doesn't need any intervention. It doesn't need it doesn't need a Superman.
No, it doesn't need any fixing. No.
Oh geez, what a, what
I mean,
a great relief.
I know.
You know?
I mean, it's yeah.
I mean, it's not that it was separate. It was never separate. So the whole thing is a movie where it's just,
yeah. And it's also, it can be very obvious, you know, when there's no more participation, there's not the one who was participating in improving himself and improving the world. When that's not present, life is just incredibly easy. Life is just at rest then.
yeah.
Even in turmoil, you know, when I say at rest, I don't mean that the appearances are any more peaceful, but there's just a peace with the shit show. You just look at the shit show and you go, oh yeah, oh that's amusing.
It's funny because you see the shit show as kind of a fabrication.
Well, do you know, I don't see, the thing is, I don't see, you know, you hear lots of, this can often be spoken about as what we call reality is a dream or an illusion. There's no sense of that. That's not what wants to be said here. It's the only reality. So what is happening is absolutely real. It's the only reality. There isn't another one. There isn't something hiding. There isn't a reality that you know, if I transcend this shit show, life happening, then you know, there is some wonderful life to be known beyond, behind, deeper, transcendent of this very sensual being human life, this most ordinary wonderful being human. Now, that's all I'm ever speaking about.
I think what I'm trying to say is it's not a shit show. It's just kind of portrayed as a shit show. You see that it's just a play of misinterpretation. It's like people are trying to make it into a shit show, but since you're not falling for it, you don't see it that way. You just see it's playing. It's just like you don't fall into the moral quandary or the moralizing or the this is good or bad or this should have happened or shouldn't. It's just all it's
well but there's like and dislike. I think the reason I say shit show is there's just as much dislike for things that are disliked about how human beings treat other human beings, how they treat nature, how they treat animals, just anything. It's very natural. This isn't saying that there's that the human being becomes totally inert and non-reactionary. Reactions just happen naturally, and there's nothing wrong with the reactions. One of the great freedoms is the freedom for what you've called yourself is free from the one who was inhibiting and saying, I shouldn't behave like that, I shouldn't feel this, when the feelings are just happen naturally. So freedom for feeling, freedom for emotion, freedom for reacting, freedom for life just being as it is.
freedom for the shit show.
Correct.
Yes. Thanks, Tim.
Yeah. Yeah.
David has his hand up.
Hello, Tim. Hi.
Hi, David.
Hear me? This has kind of been covered, I think, but I'll say it anyway. And I think the business of giving you quotes. I'm fond of quotes, you know.
Yeah.
So I like the notion of giving you quotes that you can kind of improvise on, sort of riff on. You know, whether I agree with them or not, actually, the quotes themselves. I like it. In fact, Nothing FM have done this. I noticed it, but
yeah, I noticed they've done that.
very badly, I should say.
Well, maybe we should start our own show, David.
Well, why not? I mean, to be honest, I did a Mr. Angry of Edinburgh to them because there was an
Did you?
I did. There was an hours-long interview. Well, it wasn't an interview; it was quotes for Andreas, I think his name is, isn't it?
I watched a bit of it.
Well, call me a tree hugger and a bit new-fashioned. There wasn't a single quote out of 30, maybe, by a woman. Not one. I thought, what? And it was the usual suspect, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, the idea I like, and there's a quote that comes in line with what we've just been talking about, I think. And the problem with all this stuff is, but it would close your show down within seconds. The answer to everything is there is no one. You know, meanwhile, we're just kicking things around. But as ever, and it's a man actually, Nisargadatta, again, who I think was incredibly concise. I mean, he did used to be a poet, apparently, before all that carry on. But
all that carry on.
All that carry on. As long as you have the idea of influencing events, liberation is not for you. Now, you can throw up, there is no one, blah, blah, blah. But it's a nice one to kick around.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
People are dragged kicking and screaming.
Well, there's a desire to influence events.
Sorry?
Is that, what was the first line?
As long as you, well, there we go, problem straight away.
No, that's fine, yeah.
As long as you have the desire
to
influence events, liberation is not for you. Now, it's very kind of relative, but I think it's quite neat. But you might want to kick that around a wee bit and talk about the torture that people go through in this process. Or there's a case for the prosecution as well. There are other people who just kind of glide into it actually without any. But you might want to talk about that.
No, because there are some selves. I mean, not every self has this intense desire to make life fit their needs and their wants and the way it should be. You know, not every self. And they're the ones you see, well, you probably don't even notice them because they're just very quietly, they're not making any fuss. So not every self is a bastard unto itself. But the ones who are trying to, you know, not only complete themselves and make themselves right, but influence the rest of humanity and the world, well, you know, all they're doing is they're just constantly in conflict with life, aren't they? They're actually in opposition to how, because they're directly saying life as it is isn't as it should be.
Mhm.
And whilst there is a really strong desire for life to fit the way I feel it should be, of course there can't be. How could there be peace? That is warfare, that is conflict, that's violence. It's directly violent against life as it is.
Well, I mean, that's beautifully riffed, if I may say so. That was worth it. No, really,
Thanks, David.
for what it's worth, I would agree with that. But there's, if we talk about women, maybe they don't exist, I know, but there's a lovely example of a woman who did just glide into this, and it's a book called Silence Heals. Really beautiful. Yolanda Duran Serrano is her name. I don't think you can get it now. But just very, very briefly, it really affected me in a deep, deep way. She was a normal businesswoman, French, Swiss.
Right.
And apparently, she's on her 40th birthday. She's walking around her flat and she lost her keys or something. They would normally irritate her. But it didn't. And she found them and she went out, and then somebody else, and no irritation. She's going about her life and thinking, this is good being 40. You know, I seem to have grown up. I wonder if other people feel like this.
Right.
So anyway, she heads off to some business conference. She doesn't even tell you what her business was because the whole thing collapsed, as you're about to hear. She has the conference. Her phone's out of signal. There's no signal where she is. She comes back to her car to drive back to Paris or whatever, and there's like 150 messages on the phone. The one thing that is mentioned about her personal life is her devotion to her son. And he'd been killed in a car crash.
Oh,
And there was a kind of sadness, but no trauma. And it kind of takes off from that. And I mean, it's really, really fascinating. People thought she was very ill,
yeah,
in shock.
yeah,
And I mean, that's a very extreme example, but it's just a kind of,
yeah.
it's like she'd forgotten how that knee-jerk response had gone. She wasn't capable of it anymore. It's a very extreme example. But prior to that, you know. Anyway,
Yeah, it's very obvious that you don't have to be a seeker for self to just stop appearing. No.
Yes. Yeah.
There's lots of record of that.
Okay, well, thank you, Tim.
But I think for most of those, they've never spoken of it, probably.
Well, she didn't have a clue what was. She didn't have a clue what was going on. That's when the searching started in a way.
I mean,
she was.
It's very, yeah. So then she tried to make sense of it.
You had to find out what was going on, you know, and then, you know, she ended up in a psychiatrist and all this, and he said, you know, madam, you're in constant something or other. You know, you really want me to cure you of this?
well, you can get diagnosed with dissociation disorder.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks.
Because you're not associated with yourself anymore. Or there's no association. There's no possibility of association.
Jamie has a hand up. Is it Jamie? Is that right?
Yeah, it's Jamie.
Yeah.
Jamie.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, Tim. I just wanted to say thank you and hi. I heard you on a podcast this week, and life has been pretty interesting since. So yeah. And Jim Evans as well. Jim Newman. So Jim Newman and then yourself on an interview, and it's been an interesting week, and I wanted to say thank you.
Oh, thank you. You're welcome.
That's it.
Nice. See, it does feel funny when people thank me, thank me for destroying themselves, their lives and fucking everything up, and feeling that everything's lost. And it
feels very strange. I will grant that.
But you felt okay.
I feel okay. I feel okay. I'm sort of taking it literally each second at a time, and it's fine.
Yeah.
Right. That's it.
Yeah, well, that is it, Jamie. You've just hit the nail on the head. That's all there ever is. So, you know, and not even a second at a time.
Yeah, right. I don't even know what the word is, you know, right?
No,
It's just,
there isn't a word. The thing
there
is,
isn't a word for it.
you've got nothing to learn because there isn't any words for what that is. This is. So, yeah, you don't have to worry about finding the right words or anything.
Cool.
The only reason, you know, about going back to David's point, the reason that they're speaking about this is I've just spent years and years listening to this. So, you know, the vocabulary, when it came up to speak about this, the vocabulary was all there. I'd heard it all 1,000 times from lots of different speakers as well. But I think there's many human beings without a sense of self who have never ever, no one would know, they've never mentioned it. You don't necessarily realize the reason that it's spoken about here, because there was no realization. There is no realization. There is nothing to realize. That's the shittest part of this message for the seeker. You're waiting, you're not going to get it. There isn't anything to get. That's the whole message. Whatever you're waiting for will not happen. There isn't anything that is going to happen. Just this. And this is completely unknowable. You can't point at it, you can't hold it, you can't touch it. But it's all there is.
Legio has his hand up.
Legio.
I'm sorry. Another question just appeared.
Okay.
So, yeah, because if you did not have the vocabulary from before,
Mm-hmm.
if you did not have that patterning happening as the individual, as Tim, you could not describe it. You cannot be there describing it. You couldn't be there describing it because you wouldn't know how to describe it.
No.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, kind of. Well,
Okay.
yeah.
So does that make sense?
It's sort of. Do you mean that? Because when I had all the vocabulary, I had a lot of knowledge. Seemingly, I thought I was really knowledgeable, and I thought I had a really good take on non-duality and understood it. I'd been to enough speakers. I'd been an obsessive student, you could say. I was a student of non-duality. That's how I approached it. I needed to learn it inside and out, and I needed to learn the different the different ways it was spoken about. So I listened to lots.
But that did not go to waste. That did not go to waste because now you're using it.
You could say that, but again, yeah. So in the story, no, seemingly it didn't go to waste because now you could say it's being put to use. But again, none of that happened. You know, I tell it, but
that didn't happen.
It's just a story.
Because you're not there.
Well, there's a human being here. But it's not my human being.
Yeah. Yeah, you're just just energy going through that, whatever that human being is.
There's no, I have no idea. You know what you. There's just this being human. Just this being.
I'll let the next. I'm sorry. I'll let the next guy go. Thank you, Tim.
Okay, you're welcome, Oscar.
I don't want to hog up the time.
No, you're all right. That's good. Good question. Oscar.
Okay, because I guess to reframe my question, because it cannot be seen, it cannot be touched, it cannot be experienced, it cannot be nothing. It can be nothing. It's no thing. Then
But
I don't see how you can describe it. I don't see how you can describe it.
No,
You cannot describe it.
No, you can't. No. But then there's great
So
freedom.
why are you describing it? I went too far. Never mind. I went too far.
It's fine. No, because it's a really good question, because what's the point of trying to describe something that's indescribable? Well, it's the reason it's indescribable because it is all things and it's no thing. So no matter what words, you could say all words describe it, because it's not an it. You know, there aren't any words that are outside. There is no other than what we're speaking of. So there's great freedom in that. You can't get this wrong. You can't speak about this and go, oh, that's not it.
Okay, kind of makes sense. That kind of rang through. That kind of resonated. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Oscar, do you want to ask a question?
Yeah. Hi, Tim.
Hi.
I just think that, to me, like, the idea that there's a self that in some way can go like against life, or like don't let life be as it is absurd, since there's obviously nothing else, like nothing outside what is apparently happening.
No.
It's just I mean, there is nothing like going against anything, because there's no alternative to whatever appears.
No. And of course, the self actually is also just what's happening, if it appears to be happening. So that fundamentally, yourself isn't in conflict with life, but in the appearance it is, because it's saying that life shouldn't be as it is. Life should be as I want it to be.
Yeah, but still, that it's impossible. Like, even if a parent self does the self to problem, there's no problem at all, because there's nothing other than what is. Like, a problem is sort of, it has to be some solution to a problem, for a problem to exist. But if there's nothing other than this, it's impossible to call it a problem in a way.
Yeah, you're dead right, Oscar. Perfect. Yeah, there aren't any solutions, because there are no problems.
And there's no like agenda for life. There's nothing to go against.
No.
Like, Oh, thank you, Tim.
No, well, and even the seeming going against, which self often is, so the conflict and the suffering, that's just as it is as well.
Yeah, because sometimes I sort of getting lost in the story that you tell when we meet like this, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sometimes forget that your story is just as empty as any other story. And really, sometimes when you talk about like self, it sort of sounds sometimes like self is something that doesn't exist. Like, well, it isn't. So
no,
but you know what I mean? It sounds like I just like get caught up in your story, so to speak. But it's just empty as a fart, as you said. Like your story as well.
Yeah, I tell the story because for most selves, I mean, their self is the most real aspect of life.
Yeah.
It's the most real.
But I feel like there's nothing as a self. Like, there's just apparent feelings and apparent thoughts.
Yeah.
There's not a bundle of thoughts and a bundle of feelings like this. I am separate. It's just a feeling of separateness.
Yeah.
So it's like it feels not true when talking about something that when you look at it, it's nothing other than just an experience in a way. You can't stop the experience. It's like it's just going. It's you can't get. It's nothing other than this. It's nothing outside this.
No.
Yeah.
No, that's good.
Thank you for
thanks, Oscar. No, that's well said.
Thank you.
Heidi has a hand up.
Heidi.
Hey there.
Hi, Heidi.
I was just thinking about something that was mentioned earlier about like the message of what's to do what's for the greatest good for the greatest number of people. This concept that you brought up before, and it made me think about a time when I was 14 years old, and I was sitting in the office of a Scientology recruiter, and I was visiting my dad for the summer, and the recruiter had me in front of a big chalkboard and giving a huge presentation about how if I were to sign this billion-year contract, that I would be doing the greatest good for the greatest amount of people.
Wow.
And I remember being in that situation and not having the language, kind of like what Alessio was talking about, like not being able to really conceptualize what was being said. But there was this deep, deep knowing that this was just not legit or something, you know. So yeah. And again, so this it's kind of like a knowing, you know. It's a knowing that these concepts are not going to bring any sort of anything, whatever. Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, I'm glad you didn't sign up anyway.
No, I didn't.
Don't sign anything. sign nothing.
So I just wanted to talk about that because that's you know, that's again another concept, right? That's framed with, it's just loaded with all kinds of you know, what is that? The greatest good for the greatest number of people. Like, this is that you must do this.
Absolutely.
You know?
Yeah. There is
it's silly.
There is a sense of anarchy without me, of being an anarchist. Not necessarily in an anarchic way at all, but in a very obvious, subtle. There's just no interest in being conforming anymore. I always wanted to fit in. Don't get me wrong, if you're a self who is anti-establishment, then of course there's plenty of those, but most selves want to be accepted, you know, in the tribe. And of course it's self who's tribal. There really aren't any boundaries between human beings. Just being human. And there really isn't any boundary between being or being. Everything is being what it is, but it's all being. That's why we love nature so much. That's why self can often fall away in nature. There's just being. Most cells have experienced that. Of course, cells haven't experienced it, but when self comes back, goes, oh, that was a lovely experience. Well, it's just the absence of being me. And then when there's the absence of being me, you can't say what's in its place. But it's easy, and it's peace, and it's rest. And just as it is, there's no desire to change anything. Because that all comes from me. Well, thanks very much for coming, everyone. That seems to have gone very quickly. Where is time? Really? Really, where is time? It might be really obvious that there is no time. It can be, I mean, too obvious, really.
Have a fun.
Hi, Tom.
Time flies when you have a fun.
Sorry, say again.
Time flies when you have a fun.
Oh yeah, time flies when you're having fun. And when you're at a party and you just, or I'm loath to say it, a family occasion that you so don't want to be at. How slow does time go? Oh.
Talking about fun as well. The Neil's Nothing Cafe is on after this.
Oh, thanks for that. If you would, if you fancy meeting some of the people who have come to the talk, or just anyone who's going to Neil's Cafe, just across the road, selling alcoholic and non-alcoholic beverages.
Yeah, especially alcoholic ones.
Oh, he's here. So hi, Neil. Yeah, you're all welcome to go. Neil, have you put the link in the chat?
Yeah, I think Darren and me have kind of covered that.
Okay, thanks. Okay, well, lovely to see you all. Hope to see you on Monday.
Thank you, Tim.
Thanks, Tim.
Lovely to see you all. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, Tim.
Bye.
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 Thanks, Tim. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Do we